Okay, welcome back. This is part two of a deep dive into a social media cesspool. So, this was unpacking things that were said in a live from Phoenix last week. And she had on a guest named Jess Rains, and then they had people call in. And so I'm just going through it and talking about their claims they're making, debunking things that were wrong, sharing some of my opinions as well that are based in the facts of the case that have come out in the documents. So let's pick up where we left off.
What struck me as odd is I found a photo on Google, I don't even know how, showing that the president of the school knew or was friends with a man named Dylan Mortensen, or what was his name, Casey? Something Mortensen. But I was like, that's weird. So was Dylan, because they did also kind of look similar. So is that why Dylan was spared? Is she tied into someone who's tied into the school, or I don't know. So is that how she was pulled in too?
I'm willing to bet you're thinking of Stanley Mortensen. He is the prosecuting attorney for Kootenai County, and no, he is not related to Dylan. Several people keep trying to make that claim, and he is from a completely different family. Same last name, not related.
Was not going to want to pay that lawsuit. And that's why I think maybe if it did actually happen on campus, because that car drove back and forth all night, they moved it if it did happen on campus just so they wouldn't have to pay anything. Because, like I said, money's the root of all evil. And now we got crypto and shit. So who knows?
First of all, Jess, I think you're getting confused. The lawsuit is against WSU, not University of Idaho. So are you trying to say that the crime occurred over at WSU and then they moved them back over to 1122 King? I mean, the crime itself has nothing to do with the WSU lawsuit, as I discussed in part one. The lawsuit's about WSU's actions or lack of, based on their own handbook with handling the 13 complaints. So I'm not sure what the lawsuit has to do with some crazy notion that the crime didn't happen where it happened. But if you look at the crime scene photos, it definitely happened at 1122. And the car circling all night, or going around all night, I'm assuming, are you talking about inmate 163214's car, or are you talking about the undercover car? Because we know why 163214 was circling between 3:30 and when he went into the house. And as far as the undercover car, that was literally their job, to drive around looking for minor in possession. So, and who knows, I have no clue what crypto has to do with anything, unless you've been listening to Jay Embry's crazy theories.
I really think, the location of this house, the undercover officers watching this area, I kind of feel like they weren't like watching, they were protecting this area. And if Molly, basically was there to pick up, what was she picking up? And how did Dylan get her contact information?
Molly was dropping off Jack in the Box, okay? She was dropping off Jack in the Box. She wasn't dropping off drugs. She wasn't picking up anything. She went back to Jack in the Box afterwards to pick up more orders. It's all been verified through Jack in the Box. It's in the documents. As far as the undercover cops, they were not protecting the house. This is from the Moscow PD annual report. This talks about the grant they received for the undercover detail to look for underage drinkers. So minors in possession. That's what they were out doing that morning. They were literally doing their job patrolling, looking for underage drinkers. You saw them stop the kids at the band field. The house, again, was not being protected. And you say like the location of the house. Well, it's located where a lot of off-campus living is located. That's how college towns work. So the location has nothing to do with anything either, honestly.
And what was this police department protecting in this area? Well, we know now, obviously, they protected the college, they protected the students. And I just feel something in my gut that tells me, WSU Kim was
Uh-huh.
telling everyone that there was going to be some type of shakedown and that didn't mean for all this to happen.
Might I suggest you go buy some antacid for your gut then? Nothing that WSU Kim said was accurate in any way, shape, or form. And there was not any shakedown. There was not going to be any shakedown. Just a depraved individual went into the house and murdered 4 people. Okay, and he's now in prison. So your gut really needs some help.
Dylan has the key. She knows exactly what happened. Somehow she's involved. And why would somebody get this on their arms for life if they didn't know who went first? Why would they get MKXE when we've always been told that that was the other way around?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Dylan doesn't hold the key. Dylan wasn't involved. Dylan told the police everything that she knew. Now, she was valuable in that she did see him, and her description of his height and build were pretty spot on. And I know people laugh about the eyebrows, but when you look at him, especially in that surveillance video from Costco or Walmart, his eyebrows are what you focus on. He's got a brow bone that sticks out, so even if the eyebrows themselves aren't bushy, it makes it look like he has bushy eyebrows. And that's a feature that sticks out. And especially if somebody's wearing a mask, that's what's going to stick out. So, yeah, she held the key to helping nail him through her description, but she doesn't know anymore. She told the police everything she knew. I don't know what you expect these kids to do. Do you want them to just make something up so that Phoenix feels vindicated? So you feel validated in your wacky opinions? That you want these kids to just lie and say, oh no, Phoenix is right, somebody else did it, or I was involved. No, they're telling the truth, and I don't understand why you guys just can't deal with that. Okay? I don't. Now, as far as the tattoo, we weren't told the opposite. We've always been told that he went to Maddie and Kaylee's room first, and then Xana and Ethan's second. And I don't think necessarily they were thinking of the order that they were murdered in, though, when they got those tattoos. Okay? What it was is Dylan, and that's actually not Bethany, who the other tattoo is on, but it is another one of their Pi Phi sorority sisters. But Dylan and Bethany and them were in Pi Phi with Maddie. And Maddie was first, so that could have been a coincidence there. And then Maddie being best friends with Kaylee, it makes sense that if you're putting Maddie's initial, you would put Kaylee's initial right next to her. And then Xana and Ethan were a couple. So of course you would put X and E, Xana and Ethan, because they were the couple. So you put their initials next to each other. So, I mean, you can try to make a conspiracy out of anything, I guess, but what are you really accomplishing by trying to parse a memorial tattoo?
Because they're trying to hide the shit, man. They're trying to mess up the timelines. I mean, I don't know. I talked about the concrete last week, and if you look, the concrete gets cleaner and cleaner.
Jess, please explain where the concrete has gotten cleaner and cleaner. These are just a couple pictures from after, the murders, but I am seeing no photos anywhere that show any differences in the color of the concrete. So, is this something just in your imagination? Is the concrete in the room with you now? What? Like, I would love an explanation on the concrete theory.
But from what I listened to on the tapes, I mean, I do need to go through and listen to the girls' voices a little better. But why, if it wasn't it was Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, Xana, then why did, when he was like, I fucking loved you, Kaylee, and Maddie's like, Kaylee, I think, unless it was Dylan, but it wasn't Bethany, I don't think. I mean, I could hear the Maddie, Kaylee, the two males, and then when Ethan and Xana get home, I think they had just got home. They probably had their pizza. They were getting ready to take a shower and go to bed. and he heard, I mean, if you walked in your house and heard two men talking, what are you going to do? You're going to go be like, what the fuck? Who's in here? And the fact that Steve was like, oh, well, she couldn't even run away because, you know what I mean? So were they on the top floor? Is that what they thought that they could? Because I mean, I really do think that Ethan got pushed off the balcony.
In a world of pure imagination.
Okay, that got the Gene Wilder Pure Imagination Award again because, good Lord, nobody was pushed off the balcony. You're making all this, I can hear Maddie, I can hear Kaylee, I can hear Ethan, I can hear somebody saying, I love you, Kaylee, blah, blah, blah. No, you can't hear any of that. I think that the confirmation bias is way too strong with you. Somebody planted a seed that you could hear something and now you think you can hear it. I don't know if it was that one Emily Girls video or what that's making all of you nuts think that you're hearing things that really aren't there, but let's move on.
But I believe at this point, if they paid them enough, they'll say anything just so they don't get killed. I think that's why Dylan was so emotional at the sentencing, because she knew it wasn't BK and she knew she was going to be locked out here on the fucking streets with a serial killer probably forever unless something happens. And
No, she was emotional because she was getting to finally confront the SOB that murdered 4 of her friends, that violated their home, came in unwanted, killed her roommates, and took away her sense of security forever. Okay? Those 2 survivors will forever be changed, as would anybody who went through an experience like that.
there was a shot. I'm sorry, I have squirrel brain. There was a shot in the middle of the night between 2 and 3 before everything else. There's a point where she gets strangled. There is a shot in the middle of the night, though. And the guy, it sounded like a younger male, says, oh shit, like he didn't mean to shoot. So is that what happened? And then they were like, well, if there's already this, and this, because I was thinking in the way that they said that Ethan's legs were ritualistically carved, if you were to take an AR or a powerful gun and shoot somebody in the back of the fucking kneecaps to keep them from running, it would probably split their leg wide open. And Casey's in medical, so I'm sure she can attest to that.
Let's take a look at the medical examiner's findings, shall we? Ethan only had sharp force injuries. Okay, Ethan had no gunshots. Nobody was shot. No one was shot in that house. Okay? Also, there are no gunshots on the audio. I'm not sure why you keep saying that, because there are none. I don't even, like, you guys should really go be Hollywood screenwriters because your imaginations are so active, although I don't even think some of you would get hired for that because they're way too outlandish to even be believable.
Yeah, especially about Kaylee's face when they're saying it was completely like unrecognizable. So I do work in trauma at a level 1 hospital, and I have seen pictures of people who have actually been shot in the face. And it can make you unrecognizable, and it can break every bone in your face and knock all of your teeth out like it did her. So
shame on you if you really work in the medical field for going along with this stupidity of gunshots. If you look at what the ME said, it talks about her injuries. And it said sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries, and blunt force injuries. She had 20 plus stab wounds. There was no gunshots. She was not shot. Okay? So you, as a medical professional, should have read that and known and said, whoa, Jess and Phoenix, let's be factual. There was no gunshots.
I've even contemplated, Phoenix, if because if Kaylee and Maddie were being stalked, I literally asked Casey today, like, dude, I wouldn't put it past them to have had another person that passed away that night and then literally just, K-nap Kaylee or fucking have her in a shed tied up like Black Snake Moan. I mean, I don't know, but everything's been lies. And we know how big HT is, especially probably around big colleges. Why was all the cops in fucking plain clothes at the bar that night? And it's the biggest game night of the year. Shouldn't you have been looking out for DUIs or, maybe trying to stop this from happening? I don't know, but it seems weird.
Kaylee was not tied up in a shed anywhere. Okay? She was attacked in the house, murdered in the house, never left that bedroom after the attack, wasn't brought in to the bedroom by anyone. No one else died that morning or that night and into that morning. There was no other deceased people than the 4 in that house, fortunately. And as far as the cops, there were no what you get me so mad with your lack of critical thinking here. What cops were in plain clothes at Corner Club? And don't say Fry, because that was not Chief Fry at the Corner Club. He was out of town on a trip with his wife. Didn't get back until the afternoon of 11/13 after he got the call that he needed to come back to town. Okay? He had been away. So that's not Chief Fry, no matter how many of you want to insist it is. And the cops were out doing their job. You saw the ones doing the undercover patrol. And they were over at Identity Apartments for the sign theft, and they were off on different calls, and other officers were off on different calls. So they were doing their job. Okay? And there's no indication that there's a huge human trafficking problem in Moscow. So I'm not quite sure where that comes into play in your mind, but let's continue.
Now, do you think we will ever get to the truth, Jess?
I mean, at this point, Phoenix, they've fucking covered so much shit up. I feel like that's why they did this, because they know that there's something, I don't know what it is, dude. I get the sickest, sinister feeling in my gut when I talk about this case, when I talk about the deeper level of corruption that's in it, because what if there was nothing to hide, you wouldn't be hiding anything.
Yes, you also need some antacid for your gut, Jess. I suggest you get some. Let's talk about why there was a gag order, why there were redactions. Has nothing to do with a cover-up. This was Ann Taylor talking about not wanting the gag order lifted yet after the plea hearing. She didn't want anything lifted until after the sentencing. And she said the ongoing publicity in the case threatens inmate 163214's safety. And it says further release would only serve to gin up the anger and violent rhetoric already at a fever pitch. Again, this court is well aware of the threats posed not only to inmate 163214, but to his family and to the court staff. And see also that goes for the victims' families, the survivors, etc. Okay? When you're putting things out there publicly, it puts people in harm's way. And that's why there was a lot of redactions, a lot of things not out there. And gag orders have happened in cases before. Gag orders will happen in cases again. This also goes to show you it was Ann Taylor who initiated the original gag order. So blame her if you don't like the gag order, but also blame yourselves if you don't like redactions, because social media is a big reason why there's been so many redactions.
So why did it take so long to get all this information? Why, it just seems so staged, bro. Like, the more I read this book, Framed by John Grisham, and you see the way, because normal people like us, we don't think corrupt like that. You would never just walk out in the street and think about, but this was meticulously planned. And even one dude, there's no way BK did this, clean the crime scene, all the other shit. And then there's 56 evidence markers in the entire case.
Well, normal people don't go around twisting themselves into pretzels trying to come up with weird theories as to why this person couldn't be guilty. And that's what you guys seem to be doing. But there was way more than 55 evidence markers. And this is just a list of the exhibits the prosecution was going to use in court. So there were photographs, there were forensic results, there physical evidence, everything. So there was a lot of evidence in this case. Don't kid yourself into thinking that there wasn't. And one person did this. He really didn't meticulously plan it that well because he was sloppy, messed up, and left his DNA on the sheath and got caught. So you guys are giving him way too much credit.
We're at the time and age and technology where if we were to take a fucking road trip, the car would record it all. It has OnStar, it has GPS, there are satellites. Why don't we get the extra data? Why don't we get that? Why don't we know why the internet was off in the middle of the night?
Well, inmate 163214's car did not have any Blue Link service. Model year 2012 to 2016s were affected. And as of January 1st, 2022, the Blue Link services went down because those were on the old 2G and 3G networks. So he did not have anything like that they could have retrieved from his car. Also, his car didn't even have GPS. He had the basic model. He had a 2016 SE, which was the most basic model that they had. So it did not come with the GPS. And you can even see that in the body cam footage when he was with his dad, that they were using their phone for navigation. Now, the internet did not go down. The University of Idaho website was down for maintenance, and people are completely misinterpreting what time it went down as well. And I'm just showing you here how I went to Wayback Machine to verify about the website on November 12th and November 13th. And you'll see that I'm looking at the times that were captured on Wayback Machine for November 12th. And these times are in UTC time. So that's going to be an 8-hour time difference. And you'll see that the website was up on that time frame. So that's the University of Idaho website. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at a different time frame. So let me scroll down here. We're going to November. There we go. And I'm going to look at November 13th. And we're looking at the very first entry there on, or actually we're going back to November 12th. So we're looking at the entry that was 11/27/17 UTC time. Okay. So that's not Pacific Standard Time. That's UTC, which is an 8-hour difference. Okay. Website still up. So if you back that up 8 hours. So we know that it was up at approximately like 4:27 p.m. on the 12th. So now I'm going to look at a different range here. Sorry, that had some white there with the scrolling. And I don't want October. I want November. There we go. Going back to November here. And I'm going to look at November 13th. So that's the morning of the murders at that 6:32:34. Okay. And we're going to see that the website was down. So if you track back 8 hours from 6:32 in the morning, that is going to give you approximately 10 o'clock at night. So it was down at 10 p.m. on the 12th, and it was back up by around midnight. So it was not out at the time the murders took place, and it was not the internet that was down. It was just the main Idaho website for University of Idaho for the front page. So if anybody was trying to access anything on their website, it would be down until maintenance was done. But that does not affect the internet, and they lived in an off-campus house anyway. They had a completely separate internet service, completely separate carrier. So it was not down.
I'm so glad that she called in today because she's so smart too, and she has a lot to bring to this investigation.
Oh, so she's an investigator now. You're investigating. And what exactly are you investigating? A closed case? A crime that's solved? And what are your credentials? Are you with MPT, ISP, FBI? Are you a forensic analyst? Are you a detective? Did you go to post-training? What exactly are your credentials that enable you to be an investigator on a closed case? And somehow I don't think that any of you would even be able to investigate a stolen item from your own house. Just saying.
Ask a question here. This is a live call-in. We're just having a little bit of fun talking about the Idaho 4 case, keeping it real, keeping it live.
So there's a problem right there. Having fun. you're discussing a quadruple murder, the murder of 4 young people, as having fun. This is not fun. Okay? Discussing this crime should not be thought of as fun. And also keeping it real, that's quite the whopper you're saying there, because not a lot of anything real was being discussed in your live up to this point.
Because there is a factually innocent man sitting in prison for the rest of his entire life.
Let me remind you that he is not factually innocent, and this is the written factual basis that he himself signed, where he confessed to the 4 murders. So no, a factually innocent man is not currently sitting in prison. A factually guilty man who confessed is sitting in prison.
Could you imagine being in prison with limited options?
No, I can't imagine it. But that's also because I don't go out and commit quadruple homicides. It's his own fault that he's in prison with limited resources. Crimea River.
But when you have no evidence, that's what really pisses me off. I've never seen anyone just get slammed like that and have no circumstantial, no nothing. And I believe that if they really delved into this, that if Bethany did have exculpatory evidence, that they would be able to maybe possibly get him exonerated off of a Brady clause, but I don't know.
No evidence? No circumstantial evidence? Have you been living under a rock? Because there is plenty of evidence. Yeah, it's mainly circumstantial, but did you know that most murder cases are? And most murder convictions are with circumstantial evidence, because rarely is there a direct witness that's actually witnessing the crime itself. So most are circumstantial, but there's mountains. I showed you the state's exhibit list earlier, okay? Also, Bethany had no exculpatory information. That was something Ann Taylor floated out there. She was very crafty about that because it's still stuck in your minds, and she was hoping it would stick in the mind of a jury pool. That's what a defense attorney does. But under Idaho law, exculpatory evidence must be shown to the grand jury. And Bethany testified before the grand jury, and she had nothing that was considered exculpatory. And Richard Batanti, with that little affidavit, just saying that she has, her own things she heard and this and that, of course, because she was down in her room. She was hearing things as well, but that doesn't mean she was hearing anything exculpatory. Like I said in the last video, you could have 5 people witness a car accident and all 5 may have a different retelling of it. That doesn't mean that somebody has something that will exonerate someone. He's not getting exonerated, and definitely not from anything Bethany observed.
Because at this point, I mean, obviously, and look at that. They wanted to use this, just like Birdie said last night. They wanted to use this AI predictive programming shit so bad. Did they just say, heard that 2 other people were unalived and were like, fuck it, we need 4 to get Palantir off the ground, or whatever the case may be? I wouldn't put it past anything.
In a world of pure imagination.
That is Gene Wilder Delusional World of Imagination Award again. Palantir, give me a freaking break. WSU is not doing anything on predictive profiling. They're not doing anything with Palantir. Stop listening to Birdie. He's a snake oil salesman.
There's no pattern. There's no history. He has no fucking history of violence. He doesn't even get parking tickets and shit. So it just really blows my mind. And I'm sorry.
No parking tickets, you say? Well, what were these 7 parking tickets that were found in his apartment then? I thought he has no history of anything, including parking tickets. Wow, how could that be? How could that be? And it also does appear that he's had a pattern of behavior of inappropriateness towards females. The following segment I'm going to play is from a career counselor at his high school, and she was the one that had to kick him out of the law enforcement program at the high school. And she wouldn't go into detail during the podcast of what exactly it was, but it came out later that it had been inappropriateness towards females in the class, although they still would never say what exactly he had done or said to the girls in the class. But if you listen to her, she was not surprised after he was arrested, looking back on what he was kicked out of the program for.
Protective services and health occupations were the only two programs in our school where clearances were required to be, as a student, to be in those programs. So you were judged a little bit more carefully in those programs. Therefore, if you have an infraction that could potentially, as an adult in the field, be a big employment issue for you, then we would very seriously look at removing you from the program. So a situation occurred where a complaint was made, and the teacher reported it to me and said, this is not something we can have. An investigation needed to be conducted. Other students were interviewed. Brian was interviewed. And, there comes a time when decisions have to be made, whether it's the decision the student wants or not. He was removed from protective services and transitioned into HVAC. And then at the end of that 11th grade year is when he decided not to return as a senior. I don't think that maybe he necessarily grasped the depth and breadth of the issue at hand. When I look back on it now, makes sense. And I don't know, and that probably isn't clear for you at all. But the fact that he wanted law enforcement more than anything else in the world, if you look at it from just that perspective alone, not knowing what I know, then yeah, you'd be like, I can't, I'm so shocked. And in that respect, I am. But then I know another little piece, which is the piece that occurred at the school. And so then I'm like, but see, that makes sense. When I heard about the murders, it was actually the school guidance counselor that said, "Did you hear?" And I'm like, "What? Oh, did you hear about Brian?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." She said, "Turn on the news." And then I was like, oh my God. But with that said, I was shocked, but it made sense.
I thought that was very interesting because they held you to a higher standard in that program, but it would be something that would get you fired from a law enforcement program had you done that as a professional. So whatever he did towards those females in class was to where if you were in the workplace, you would be fired. So it's pretty serious, and it's interesting. She said he didn't seem to grasp the magnitude of the situation. And then, of course, she says when she looks back now on what she knew then, it makes sense about him being arrested for the murders. So I know a lot of us would really like to know what truly took place when he was in that law enforcement program. But if that's the type of behavior that he was demonstrating at WSU, then he was already demonstrating that back in his high school days. So there's a precursor.
And I saw this article because I had been searching to get to the bottom of what possibly could be Gideon was here. And do you know, Peter Thiel, he actually has a launch of Gideon. It's an AI-driven threat detection platform
Oh my God.
designed for U.S. law enforcement, signals the entry into an era of algorithmic
Oh my God.
pre-crime policing.
Oh my God.
Now, if Dylan had Gideon was here and President Trump commented on this case, which I have never seen anyone in the history of any crime that I've been following comment that this is nothing.
President Trump's not the first president, and probably won't be the last, who has commented on a crime that has made national news. And it's because a reporter asked him about it anyways, like at one of his pressers. So I'm not sure where you're getting this acting like it's like unprecedented, like you've never heard it before. But let's continue with your crazy Gideon theory.
Let me preface this before everybody gasped. WSU was doing predictive profiling. I know that from the study when Bertie and I were talking, and I said, let's look into the money part. There's plenty of studies that are funded out here.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
I'm not sure if you or Bertie are aware that you can actually look up programs that Department of Justice grants were awarded to universities. And WSU was not doing a study on that, on predictive criminal behavior and emerging adults or whatever gobbledygook that Bertie was trying to claim it was. You can actually search here on the DOJ website. And there is nothing. You can also go to WSU's website and look up the grants that they've received. And Bertie made that up out of his rear. And you went along with him on it and spread that misinformation. There is no such program. You can see where I'm scrolling through here, looking at the different programs for Washington, for the universities in Washington, and taking a look at what some of these are. Rural justice systems, okay, that has nothing to do with predictive profiling and emerging adults, as Bertie would say. I also messaged Bertie and said, hey, what is the grant name, the full name, the link to where the grant was awarded, and the principal researcher's name, along with some other questions, and he couldn't answer or refused to answer, but I'm sure he refused because he knows he made it up. He made that whole thing up, just like he made up the whole thing about Kaylee supposedly cracking some computer code that was being worked on with Schweitzer Engineering Labs and the FBI and WSU, just a bunch of, again, gobbledygook conspiracy crap that's not rooted in any facts. So there was no WSU study. Okay, in fact, the last study they really had in the Criminal Justice Department was through a DOJ grant, was the rural one, rural policing, and then the marijuana study. So I find it funny that you guys will lie about things that can be verified. You can go on the DOJ website and look it up. You can go on the WSU website and look it up. So when you make up a study, you should know that somebody's going to go see if that study really exists. So, pretty pathetic. And it's so funny how you claim you're only about facts. No, you're not about facts, Phoenix. Not in any way, shape, or form. But I'm going to stop scrolling through here now because you get the point.
This is it, but I believe alleged this could be something dealing with the predictive criminal profiling, with the Idaho 4 agenda, with the WSU lawsuit, and simple down to the thing that was written on Dylan's arm. Could it be that much of a coincidence, or could it be just some guy, random guy named Gideon at WSU? Could it be?
In a world of pure imagination.
Or could it just be you have an overactive imagination and like to make up a lot of crap about this case? Okay. It's pure imagination. You really want me to believe that a fake study is going hand in hand with some FBI thing or CIA thing and Palantir and all that other crap, and it involves someone named Gideon that you claim is on Dylan's arm, even though that's not on her arm. But I digress. It's just, and you think that Dylan was all involved in all this? A 19-year-old college sophomore in a sorority was involved in like some international predictive profiling thing with the government and give me a break. Seriously. Give me a break.
I got a lot of clothes on right now, so hopefully the sun comes out a little bit. Hoping. Positive thoughts. I wake up. If I'm feeling good, I'll shower. Maybe get some coffee in me. Maybe some food from leftovers from Domino's last night.
Now, if this was mainstream news and this guy was allegedly arrested for this crime, they would have been all over him. This guy drinks Coors Light and White Claws. How many people drink White Claws and Coors Light? Right? I'm just
I'm
being
telling you, I don't
realistic
believe
here.
in coincidences, man. It
Ideally,
feels
I'll be on
like
top of that
somebody's
thing.
tied to the
Funny how-
media.
Yes, but was said person who drank White Claws and Coors Light also leaving their DNA on a sheath? Because you can't just sit there and say, oh, anybody that drinks Coors Light and White Claws could be arrested for the crime. No, not anybody could. Because not everybody is leaving skin cells in a robust quantity on a knife sheath on a bed, partially underneath a victim. Do you not understand that? This is not something that just happens daily. And it's just like Hitler said when Ann Taylor said, well, when you go out, you leave your DNA everywhere. And Hitler pointed out that not at a crime scene with 4 murders, I don't. Exactly. But let's continue.
He's our best player on our team. Gideon Manahan, the kid is just a star.
GM?
Outside of Pullman here, you're a real adult. You have real problems.
If I had any advice for him, it'd be to change your major again. Just so he can keep playing intramural softball.
Just see what my major is when I graduate and kind of do something with that, hopefully.
What is your major?
Last time I checked, it's general studies. So whatever that does for me in the real world, I'll just do that, I guess.
Who is this guy related to?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the FBI could do a 23andMe on him too, but
How's all that reaching going? Are you needing any Bengay for how hard you're reaching, Phoenix? This was a COM 390 project. So it's for a communications class at WSU. And it was a comedy piece, kind of like a documentary, but comedic, using one of the students. But I suppose you think that he's Gideon. Yes, his real name is Gideon, but I suppose you think this is tied into the Idaho 4 somehow, which it's not. But, reaching is all you guys seem to have over on the inmate 163214's innocent side.
everything's felt so staged in this case. That feels like crisis actors to me. And I want to point out that I was doing like a Google Maps overview because obviously they don't show you shit from the ground. So I was doing an aerial view, and there's a theater school right by King Road. So that's what vibe that gave me. That seemed like something that's on like Trailer Park Boys, like just to see, like it just seemed very scripted to me.
You would rewrite about that Gideon part being scripted because that was a class project. So it was scripted. Oh my gosh. University of Idaho has a drama department. Oh no. Yeah, a lot of colleges have drama departments, and U of I's is very good, actually. But you might want to skip on the talk of crisis acting, because remember Alex Jones? Remember what happened to him when he tried to say that Sandy Hook was fake and that there were crisis actors and that it was a psyop? And you're kind of entering into that territory when you claim that. So you might want to watch, because he ended up losing a lot of money when the family sued.
But I'm telling you, what are the odds? I mean, the media will tell you anything. They did that from day one. The story's changed 1,000 times. They don't care. They just want whatever's going to get them the most views. You know what I mean?
And isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
The media will tell you anything. You don't say. They just want whatever is going to give them views and money. You don't say. Oh my God, that almost sounds like you two. Especially Phoenix. She says whatever she wants because it gets the viewers. It gets them hooked. People are invested in wild conspiracy theories, and she knows that. And she's learning from the master, Birdie. Because like I said, he's a snake oil salesman. And he's got people convinced that it's a psyop and that it's all these different programs combined. FBI, DOJ, Palantir, Schweitzer Engineering Labs, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it's kind of funny that you criticize the media when you guys are doing the exact same thing for clicks and views and money.
Might I add, though, that Hunter and the cop were homeboys?
Yeah.
Well, it makes it easier for him to do experimenting.
And I mean, I wouldn't doubt it.
Well,
I really think They were trying to just cover it up and make this such a mind fuck because they knew if they didn't, they would get caught. There's the clip where the cops are in the kitchen and he's like, that's weird. There's a little bit of blood by the sink, but it felt more like they were trying to get rid of it than swab it or something to me.
And I didn't play like the whole segment leading in, but when the gal said for Hunter to do experimenting, she was accusing Hunter of being who left the experimental cuts on the victims' bodies. And that whole homeboy thing is so blown out of proportion. I hear people all the time going, hey, your guy, or my guy, or your homeboy, my home skillet, my home slice, dude. You know, it doesn't mean that they were like friends. Hunter Johnson was in grad school. He had been up there for 5 years because you graduate, then you go one more year for grad school. He probably was familiar with the police that would patrol around the campus area. That doesn't mean that there's anything inappropriate about that. Like, that comment's gotten so overblown. But I want to show you the clip of the cops in the kitchen, because it doesn't exactly sound like they were being dismissive or trying to get rid of evidence.
Looks like there's some dried blood on the sink, but there's not any around it, and there's no blood droplets on the outside. Once we get everybody here, we need to start tracking down where these go to.
Okay, that sounded to me like the opposite of them trying to get rid of anything. He was pointing it out, and they pointed it out to the forensics team, and it was tested, and it turned out that there was no blood. So they weren't hiding anything. They weren't trying to get rid of anything. The forensic team tested that area, tested the sink and all that, and there was no blood.
It's all these different cast of characters, like the game of Clue, but a real live brutal murder, and they come up with this one guy to do it, never been in the facility at night, goes in there and does that with a knife. I mean, it's just, and to get out of there in that time with no blood everywhere, and it doesn't make any sense unless he was a Marine, a Rambo.
Okay, and I've already talked about that in the first video I posted on this. You got Bondi Junction Mall, you got the Calgary massacre, you had Nikolai Mew, who stabbed 4 or 5 kids at Apple River in 5 seconds. You don't have to be a Rambo to take a knife and stab and kill people. So, and he wasn't framed. They didn't just pick him to, no, the evidence led to him.
Just so crazy with all the footage of Hunter pulling he puts his hands on his head, Phoenix, just like that Watts character.
Chris Watts.
It was the same pose. It was the same exact thing. I wish someone could put those two together and watch him do it.
I'll definitely do that. That's a really good point, Marshall.
And he picked up a knife. The dude had a knife. There was a stabbing, and I think the knife he put on the ping pong table, whatever, had blood on it. And it was like this was 8 hours. And then it's so mind-blowing.
Oh my God, he picked up a knife. What was so mind-blowing about it? He went in the house. The girls were scared, were telling him they thought something was wrong. He spotted right away that something wasn't right. So he went to the kitchen and got a knife because he didn't know if somebody was still in the house. So I get the feeling that it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't, with the way you guys are treating these kids. Because you're mad that Dylan and Bethany, well, not this caller specifically, but just a lot of the people that are on the inmate 163214 side of the case, you're mad they didn't call 911. So why didn't they leave the house if they were scared, or why didn't they try to protect themselves, or why didn't they call the cops? But then you're also mad when Hunter tries to protect himself in case somebody's still in the house. So make up your mind. Did you want them not doing anything, or did you want them being scared, or did you want them trying to protect themselves? I mean, you can't have it both ways of what you want to be mad about. And also, there was no blood on the knife.
Case with 2 blood DNA of 2 individuals not identified and a man innocent factually innocent, sitting in jail is mind blowing. Because this could have been you, Marshall. It could have been me. It could have been anyone here. But it was Brian Koberger.
No, it couldn't have been you. It couldn't have been me. It couldn't have been any of us. Unless we had gone into a house and murdered 4 people. Then it could have been one of us getting arrested and now sitting in jail. It was inmate 163214 that did it, and he's sitting in prison.
My thought goes back to Hunter. Mr. Hunter. This whole knife on the ping pong table. He's the one that placed it there. Did we not see him place that knife on that table? The knife also had blood on it. It looked like it was put underneath the water for a little bit, like watered down blood.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like there was blood on the table. I cannot say for sure there was blood on the knife. I would only hope that they had done some forensics on it, because I've never seen any forensics done on the steak knife.
Okay, so the knife was taken into evidence. This is the list of things that were taken and entered into evidence. And there was not blood on the knife itself, but there was some of Kaylee's blood that was in a spot on the beer pong table. That was near where inmate 163214 walked by when he would have been carrying the knife in his hand on the way to Xana's room. But no, there was no blood on the knife that Hunter Johnson had grabbed from the kitchen.
And I thought I heard
that maybe we were told that there was some experimental wounds that happened after. Yeah.
And that's why I was thinking maybe Hunter might have did some stabbing of his own after they were all dead. But the blood that was on the knife, from what I understand, was Kaylee's. Was it not?
But it is speculation. We could allege that somebody went in there and possibly experimented.
Well, it could have been any of them.
Yeah, I mean,
it could have been any of them.
It wasn't any of them. Okay? And again, I just told you there was no blood on the knife, on the one he grabbed from the kitchen. And had they gone in 8 hours later and done any cuts on the bodies, the medical examiner would have discovered that those weren't done at the same time as all of the other injuries were inflicted. You guys act like forensic pathologists are stupid, that they can't tell when a wound was inflicted, or if the person was already dead at the time a wound was inflicted. I mean, to accuse Hunter and all them of stabbing the dead bodies later is just ludicrous, and it's disgusting. And I guess I still don't understand why you think it's okay to say these things and then guise it as, well, we just have questions. We just have questions. No, those aren't questions. Those are making up things that are accusatory against innocent people.
I still think Dylan might have given Kaylee a few jabs on her own, just because I've always heard their relationship was a little jealousy between Dylan and Kaylee.
Again, no, Dylan had no part in it. And where exactly are you getting that there was any jealousy? Is this just something that you're creating in your own mind? Or are you listening to rumors that other people that are creating it in their own mind are spreading? Because there's no one, none of the friends, none of the acquaintances that have ever said that Dylan was jealous of Kaylee. None. That's strictly come from people on social media that I've seen that have been judging Dylan by her looks and saying horrible things about her And all of a sudden they came up with untrue stories. So if you have proof, if you have actual proof that she was jealous, then show it. If not, don't be making shit up like that, because that's very hurtful. And the things that have been said about those two surviving roommates is just uncalled for.
I want to note that if you pay attention to their hands, when the first initial police body cam, people were in hoodies covered in blankets. They were hiding their hands, but one of Dylan's seemed kind of bruised to me, and I believe it was like maybe Jack Decor. When I have really bad arthritis and osteoporosis from a bone disease that I have, and when my hand hurts like that, I hold it the exact same position she was. And for some particular reason, she kept hiding her, I would assume, dominant hand. I can't confirm, obviously, but so why? And why did Hunter have to make a point to say, oh, I came over in shorts and a hoodie, so you knew that I wasn't going to, I'm not going to be here long? Who would think that? Who's going to look at somebody and be like, oh, he wore shorts. He must have not planned on being over there long. Like, that's.
If you look at the body cam footage, and I think I had showed it already when you brought up the first time about blankets and everything, when Bethany was coming across the street. They were not all huddled up out there in blankets when the first cops got there, okay? The cops are who started passing out blankets to them, and then one of the gals, I think it was Ava Wood, went and got some blankets from her apartment as well. Because they were all out there in the cold, and the cops told them they couldn't go anywhere, obviously. So it's not like they could go put on warmer clothing or shoes at that moment. So there's nothing wrong with them being all huddled up under blankets. And no, Dylan was not hiding her hands. And as far as Hunter Johnson, you make it sound like he made that comment when the cop was talking to him. No, he talked about it in the documentary. Take a listen.
November, so I had shorts on, slides on. Like, I wasn't prepared to obviously stay there. I was just going over to check, see what's going on. I would say as soon as you get there, you know something's wrong.
It's like you ever told somebody something and then they fucking repeat exactly what you said to them like they said it first? That's what it felt like. It was really weird.
Yeah, I know exactly what it feels like, because that's how I feel listening to all of you guys all the time. One person says something that's untrue, that's a rumor, and then the next person expands on it, and the next person expands on it, and then somebody mishears that, and then the next thing you know, it's not even the same as what it started with, but it's being repeated as fact, even though the whole time it was untrue anyways, but it's morphed into like this big conspiracy that makes people go, oh my God, maybe that's what happened.
It feels like a really bad game of telephone. Like somebody said, you better say this, or I don't know. It's untelling how many culprits were in on it. But one person, how are you going to use that many weapons with two hands, 4 people? He had no bruises, no wounds on him, nothing on him. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no. The game of telephone describes more like I was saying about you guys. And no, nobody, Dylan, Bethany, none of them were being told that you're going to say this story. And there were not multiple perps. He wasn't running around with multiple weapons either. I'm not even going to post it again because I posted it so many times in the last part. And again in this part, that the medical examiner found that they were all murdered with a single-edged, non-serrated, sharp weapon. One weapon.
And I mean, for the fact that they didn't, I've never seen any videos first of all, they blurred out everyone's faces. If you were doing an active murder investigation and releasing clips to the public, why would you blur out everyone's faces that could be possible suspects, unless you were trying to hide that somebody was around the girls or you were trying to hide something?
Gee, I wonder why they blurred out faces. Could it be because they knew people on social media would harass anybody pictured in the videos and send death threats and make ridiculous comments about? Also, law enforcement will tell you when they're trying to identify someone, and they didn't believe that anybody that was there was somebody that they needed to have identified because they already, how do I explain this? Like, Jack Ducour was their initial suspect. So they knew him. Like he was there. They interviewed him. They had his contact information. So they didn't need to put a video out to the public going, "Can you help us identify this man?" So there was no reason to show his face and ask for help finding him because they knew where to find him. Do you understand that? When the police put out a video when they're looking for a suspect and they show you the face, they don't redact it, it's because they don't know where the person is or who they are, and they need help identifying them and finding them. Okay? So the people that you have right there outside the house, they had all their names, all their contact info, everything. Okay? Does that make sense now? And you blur their faces out so that the public, so people like you in Phoenix, don't bash them and don't try to find them and don't dox them. But unfortunately, that happened anyway.
Yeah, explain to me why you can walk into a house of 4 deceased stabbed people. As a nurse, you could smell the blood for one, and for two, you should have been able to see, because apparently somebody did state that they saw that there was blood everywhere. But yet, when the cops are walking through there, they're not redacting very many places with that should have had blood everywhere.
Okay, so first of all, 2 19-year-old sophomore college sorority girls probably aren't going to know what blood smells like from freshly murdered bodies. And I hear people going, "Oh, about period blood, women have periods." That's a completely different smell because it's mixed with mucus, it's mixed with endometrial tissue. It's not the same as when you have arterial blood, stab wounds, etc. So not everybody knows what blood smells like and would register that it was blood. Okay? And first responders, seasoned, and you said you were a nurse, know what that smells like, being around an operating room or responding to calls. But most of your college kids aren't going to know what that smells like. Now, as to the second point, in the body cam, why you weren't really seeing a lot of blood is because it was contained to the 2 bedrooms pretty much. So Maddie's room and Xana's room, and they redacted those. They blocked out those. And also, if you're a nurse, you should know that when somebody has wounds to their chest, to their lungs, their heart, their chest, that blood goes down in the cavity. So, and they had said Kaylee was like aspirating on her blood and everything. It goes down into the cavity, and then it also, the blood that seeps out when you're on a bed goes down into the mattress. So it's not like they were all lying on floors where it would pool up underneath them on the floor, but also you've got a certain amount that's going down into that chest cavity. Now, Ethan's being the jugular and the subclavian, we saw how it leaked out of the house. But yeah, it was bloody, but I guess just not in the way that people are trained to think from watching movies or different crime scene scenarios. You had 3 out of the 4 people on mattresses, and anytime there's chest wounds as well, it goes down into the cavity.
Say that I've always felt there was a component of not like heavy cartel drugs, but maybe just some casual using of drugs because these girls were obsessed with staying thin. If you look at them nowadays, they look much different. And some of the things that I've seen on social media with Hunter, since we're on this subject, has been like he was Pimp Daddy. That's what they called him on social media. And I'm like, what? What was really going on here was a little small business on the side of maybe a little bit of a lot of things.
Well, that's kind of funny that you say that, because in the audio that I transcribed, there is also another portion I forgot about where he's talking to Kaylee or Maddie, and he's like, I think it was Kaylee, and he said, "Oh, you thought you was gonna turn something about you thought you were gonna turn this into a college whorehouse," and she said no, and he said, "I watched you." So that's why I keep coming back to the stalker thing. Did somebody fucking have cameras inside of that house on them if there was a rug operation being ran? Did someone have cameras hidden? Nowadays, you can buy a freaking pencil and it can be a spy camera. So I mean, that's what I keep coming back. Why are they trying to bury the stalker narrative that we were given at first? Because, I mean, there are people out there that will fall in love with you that don't fucking know you, and then shit like this does happen. So that's what I wonder too. But I do think it was a multitude of things, man. But at the end of the day, that's why it's so confusing, because it's like, well, was it just a bunch of college kids experimenting and doing post-mortem shit? Was it a cult? Was it because there were so many elements to the crime, like the skin dogs?
In a world of pure imagination.
Now, as to the second point, in the body cam, why you weren't really seeing a lot of blood is because it was contained to the 2 bedrooms, pretty much. So Maddie's room and Xana's room, and they redacted those. They blocked out those. And also, if you're a nurse, you should know that when somebody has wounds to their chest, to their lungs, their heart, their chest, that blood goes down in the cavity. So, and they had said Kaylee was like aspirating on her blood and everything. It goes down into the cavity, and then it also, the blood that seeps out when you're on a bed goes down into the mattress. So it's not like they were all lying on floors where it would pool up underneath them on the floor, but also you've got a certain amount that's going down into that chest cavity. Now, Ethan's being the jugular and the subclavian, we saw how it leaked out of the house. But yeah, it was bloody, but I guess just not in the way that people are trained to think from watching movies or different crime scene scenarios. You had 3 out of the 4 people on mattresses, and anytime there's chest wounds as well, it goes down into the cavity.
And you know what I was going to say and forgot to last night on Birdies? That's what the thought I lost in the middle of the show. I understand now kind of why Jack was so more concerned about Murphy at the beginning. After, I mean, if he wasn't completely involved and it wasn't him, if you knew that your girlfriend of 5 years who had just been killed and there was just a skin dog and your dog ran off, man.
Okay, so the skin dog wasn't right near the house. Everybody keeps going, oh, it was like in the neighborhood. No, it was out in the country, like 3-4 miles away. Which in Moscow is a ways away. Because if you're over near campus, everything's close together. But also, it was a juvenile that did that. That's why no name ever got released, because they were under 18. That was known a long time ago. That was known clear back in like 2023. And then I think Jules FOIA'd the information just more recently. But yeah, it had been known for a long time that it was a juvenile. Also, watching the body cam footage, Jack does not seem more concerned about the dog, so I'm not quite sure where you're getting that impression. He's actually concerned about Kaylee, especially when he was sitting in the car, wanting to know what happened to her. So let's listen to the body cam.
I live right over there, but that's my ex-girlfriend of like 5 years and dog, and I don't do anything.
Your ex-girlfriend and your dog, are you hanging out with these guys right now, or no? Or are you just walking by?
No, I came over here because I saw this, and I'm just trying to find out what's going on.
Trying to figure out what's going on? Okay, man. Yeah, I'll have you sit here for a second, and then we'll have someone talk with you, okay?
Speak to someone about what's going on?
Yeah, give me just a second, man. I understand your dog's upstairs.
I'm not worried about my dog. I'm worried about what happened. I don't know anything.
Okay.
Well, you know what's weird about that? In the interrogation, he says, and this has really had me stumped too, because there was a 17-minute conversation allegedly, but there's a portion of it where he said, yeah, Murphy got out, and the cop asked him something along the lines of like, well, how did you know? And he said, I overheard Dylan. And I said, well, if you wasn't there and you was at home, how would you have overheard Dylan say that the dog was gone unless you was there?
Yep.
Okay, maybe I'm missing it somewhere, but I can't find anywhere in any of his police interviews where he said Murphy got out and that he had overheard that. However, he probably did hear that from Dylan because he was talking to her when he first came walking up before he went and talked to the officer and was put into the patrol car. So he wouldn't have had to be there at the house when Murphy went missing to know that, because I'm sure that it was discussed among all of them at some point when they were out there all talking, because Dylan was kind of trying to recall everything. So, and I'll show you the body cam footage showing that Jack was talking to Dylan beforehand.
This is one of the... pretty much they were in the main room. I heard them dancing and laughing. Kaylee went upstairs and she screamed because someone was in the room and she ran downstairs. And I kept calling her name and she wouldn't answer. And then I saw the guy.
Well, then how did Dylan on November 17th describe Molly if she never saw her before? I mean, there are little things like this all riddled throughout.
I've watched Dylan's whole interview from December 17th, went back and looked at it again to see if maybe I missed something. She was never asked about the DoorDash. She never said anything about Molly, never described Molly. So I'm not sure where you're getting that from.
And I thought the other night, if this is just not the cops covering up for the frats, allegedly, what about the frats covering up for the own frats before the cops got there? What if something else totally happened differently? The frats allegedly cover it up, then the cops get there, and now they've got to cover up the cover up.
What exactly was that word salad? So the frats were covering for the frats, and then the cops were covering for the frats, but the cops were covering for the cops? On what planet does any of that make sense? And also the frats covering for the frats. Let me tell you something about fraternities. If one frat is in trouble for something, another frat's not going to cover for them or help them out. That's just not how it works. They're rivals, okay? Yeah, you're all in the Greek system, you're all in different Greek houses, but you're loyal to your own house as far as, it's almost like football teams. Like, I cheer for the Seahawks, so I'm not going to go say glowing things about San Francisco or the Rams, or extend a way to help out that organization if I'm with the other organization, for example. So one fraternity is not going to help bail out another fraternity. They're going to be like, whoops, sucks to be you. So, and the cops aren't going to bail out the fraternities either, believe me. I mean, hell, they're getting grant money to go bust minor in possessions over near Great Crow. So, yeah, they are not bailing out. Anyways, that was quite the strange thought process that you had there.
You know, yeah. I've thought about it being like maybe it was some kids from the Pullman school, or it's just really freaky, dude.
Okay, yeah, sure. It was the local high school kids. How many more people are you going to try to implicate? Like, I swear, I have heard at least over 300 people be mentioned by all of you conspiracy nuts. So what's next? The middle school kids? The grade school kids were in on it? I mean, I've already heard the whole town of Moscow was in on it, according to you guys. So why not? How about the local preschool? Maybe they had tiny little Fisher-Price K-bars. Give me a break.
I still think Dylan knows more.
Oh, absolutely. I always thought that maybe I told Adam everything, is that Kaylee was leaving that morning and not going to come back.
We know what the Adam thing was. It was that Kaylee was wanting to get back together with Jack. And no, she was not leaving that morning. She was going to be there until the Tuesday. But let's listen to an interview with the Gonzalez family.
Everything nothing but love.
We went and investigated Adam. What did you tell Adam? We went through that whole thing. Adam is about her trying to get back with Jack.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty weird too. So could something have gotten back from that time point from Adam? Because in the audio, if that's the real audio, he says there was no talk about you moving away. And she said, but I got a job. So did they tell Adam something, and on the way home?
She got the job. She was leaving.
Yeah, but she
Something
still had her
triggered and
stuff.
sparked them, and I'm getting in the car.
Didn't she still have her stuff though
Well,
in her room?
it looked like there were plenty of stuff that was, given to the
Still in
parents.
her
They
room.
said they got
Oh,
boxes of
yeah.
stuff. But if she made the decision, I'm out of here in the morning and I'm not coming back here, I could always send the moving company to come get my stuff, or friends or family can go if she was really concerned. But
Okay, so Kaylee was not leaving that morning. Again, she was staying till Tuesday, and she had talked to her mom, and I remember Christy had said that Kaylee was going to come back for her mom's birthday on Tuesday. But also, she was having second thoughts about leaving. Both Dylan and Bethany talked about it in their police interviews. Let's take a listen.
Do you know when she was going to move to Texas?
After the semester. But then apparently she wasn't going to anymore. I don't know.
Do you know what changed your mind?
I think she wanted to stay here with all of us. The one thing I do remember is Kaylee had talked about moving to Texas. There's a few, I think it was Houston, Texas, Santa Barbara, and there's one other one she talked about. And she'd gone home, I think, for a week or so, and then the snow came, and so she didn't come back, and then she got her new Range Rover with new tires. She came home, and I think we convinced her to stay another semester, but I didn't know for sure she was fully going to stay another semester or not. We had, I think we talked to Maddie about, trying to convince her to stay, and Maddie had sort of convinced her to stay, so.
there's an article I just pulled up, and it said this was from Josie, Emily's best friend that hung around with Hunter all the time. They called him Pimp Daddy or something really odd. And it was never anything serious. Friends explain delayed 911 call. Nothing serious?
Okay, here's the article, and I can tell you didn't read beyond the headline, because if you actually had read beyond the headline, you would know that she wasn't saying that day it wasn't serious, that the murders and them calling 911 that day wasn't serious. She was explaining why Dylan likely didn't call 911. And what Josie said is she's called us before and been like, oh, I'm scared, can you bring your boyfriends over? But was never anything serious. It was just like a pan fill. Actually nothing, Louderin recalled. So that wasn't referring to that specific day when they went over, when Hunter, grabbed the steak knife and everything. She wasn't saying, oh, it wasn't serious about the murders. So next time, try reading the article instead of just a headline before you look like an ass.
They're all in the house, and I'm sure they all saw all 4 victims.
I agree.
I think everyone saw what happened.
I mean, nobody acted fucking surprised, dude. Nobody acted like it was literally, if it was really like that, those college kids would have been so traumatized, dude. Why does it feel like everyone knew that this was going to happen? Was it a purge night? Did these motherfuckers really plan a purge? And I'm sorry, excuse my language, but it just makes me mad.
Okay, first of all, not everyone saw Xana. Dylan glanced quickly on the way down to Bethany's room. It sounds like Bethany and Dylan may have gotten a glance again when Hunter came over, and then Hunter, but none of the rest of them did. And Dylan and Bethany didn't even see her up close. It was all from a distance, so it still wasn't registering really what was going on. So no, they didn't all see, they didn't all know. And Hunter purposely tried to keep them from getting too hysterical. He bent the truth and lied and said unconscious because he didn't want them knowing the extent. Now, as far as when they found out that they were dead, you can hear them on the body cam all start crying and being upset, because that's when it finally is sinking in that, yes, they're dead. But the other thing you have to understand is everybody processes things differently. Grief and hearing bad news is not the same in every person. We're not cookie cutter. We're not one size fits all. We all react differently. So you might react one way, but that doesn't mean that Dylan and Bethany and all of them have to act the same way you act. So understanding grief is the first thing you need to learn.
Because I mean, we see people tracking through the footprints in the back, walking over the snow. There's no murder weapons. There's no real evidence. So
if you watch this body cam, you'll see he didn't step in the footprints. You'll see him sidestepping them and making sure he's stepping on either one side or the other.
And none of them kids had a real reaction. I can remember getting phone calls of people that I love passing away and me literally hitting my knees like it's uncontrollable. And I can't imagine what it would be like to walk into a situation like that. Even if you weren't close to those friends, you would be terrified that it would be you next if you didn't know who did it, right? Wouldn't you all be fucking? I would have locked myself in my house. I wouldn't be outside on the streets.
Again, everybody handles grief differently and reaction to hearing bad news differently. Also, they couldn't go lock themselves in a house because the police told them to stay there. They had to stay outside so police could start coming around and taking initial statements. And I'm sure when they went back home after that weekend, they were recluses for a while. And we know Dylan especially was one. It took almost a year, honestly, before she went back and was doing things again. And the media had followed her sister around when her sister was jogging. So it wasn't just maybe worrying that somebody might be out there that wanted to kill them, but there was media harassing and hounding them. So you don't know what their days were like after they went back home. So to try to claim that they weren't grieving properly or that they weren't acting upset or that... And also, he was caught fairly quickly. So I'm sure that was a big relief to them that the threat wasn't on the street anymore, but they still had other things they had to worry about, like people sending them death threats, etc. So, but yeah, like I said before, you really need to read up on grief and how everybody handles it differently.
Oh, and it's terrible because we hear the story about Dylan that she walked right past him. He saw her, all these other, she saw him, go out the door. She sure saw this guy a lot of times.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
She only saw him once, not several times. So in case you need a refresher, here's from her police interview.
So between that time, obviously, you're not hearing anything. You had something to drink, so obviously you're going to sleep a little bit deeper, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you hear her, she says what she says, you hear her hitting the stairs, you open the door, cry out to her,
Yes.
and then you close the door because you're scared.
Yes.
Right? What happens at that point?
I opened the door again, and I heard what I thought was Kaylee crying in the bathroom, and I heard this man's voice say, "It's okay, I'm gonna help you," but it wasn't like in a nice way. Like it was just weird, and it was a voice I've never heard before.
Okay.
And then I called out to her, and there was no crying after that. I don't really know what happened after that.
So when you opened the door, you thought you heard Kaylee crying in the bathroom?
Yeah,
okay.
But it could have been Dana, but I thought it was Kate at the time.
Okay. These questions are really helping because I'm just writing right over the top of them. And you said you don't recognize the voice.
No. And then I opened the door again, and the guy is right there. And he's maybe my height, a few inches taller, not like skinny, athletic built. He has all black. He's wearing this masks that covers just his forehead, and here and it goes like around. He was white. He saw me and I saw him, and he just left.
Well, she said she got up. What's weird is she said she got up at one point and locked the door. But it's like, why wouldn't you have ran out of the house or something, for one? And for two, you should have fucking locked the door before these assholes was in there, I guess. I don't know. Not victim blaming, but it's like,
You
it's
should have
just
locked
too
the whole house up.
coincidental. It's
But
too coincidental.
No, you are victim blaming. And I mean, yes, people can take away from this to buy dowels for their sliding doors and make sure they lock their doors at night. But the thing is, if you do happen to forget to lock your door, that doesn't mean that a random person can just come walking in. Okay, that's not an invitation for somebody to come in uninvited and murder people. So yeah, you're victim blaming, and it's gross.
But we know that Bethany's room was a mess. So how do we know that they didn't get through Bethany's window?
Well,
And
there
I
were
don't
screens
think
on
that
the
they
ground
hung out.
outside.
So Bethany's room was not a mess. And if you've seen the photo release that came out last week, you'll see that they had photos taken before and then after they had moved all the stuff in their rooms around to be able to check the floors, to look for blood, etc. So her bed was not all cluttered like it looks like in the second set of photos. And also there was a screen off, but it was out there by Dylan's room, and it had been off for a long time. Like you can see it in the body cam when they have the noise complaints. So that wasn't on Bethany's. Like nobody came through Bethany's, and they established that he came in through the slider on the second floor there where the kitchen is.
I don't know. I've never seen a crime scene like this. I've never had anything where you can't look at the blood splatter and be able to tell the angle, the velocity, what weapon, how it was done.
Oh, so you're a blood spatter expert. Really? Care to share your credentials? How many cases have you worked on? How many crime scenes have you looked at and determined velocity, weapon, angle, etc.? I'd love to know. Please share your education and your history as a forensic analyst.
There's none of that here, but there was a lot of staining on the concrete, and I found other pictures that show a lot of blood on the roof. So was it not the balcony? Did Ethan try to jump out of a window and jump off the house and they pushed him before he could? Because I don't know.
Not the concrete. Again, I'm still not seeing where there was any staining on the concrete. But anyway, here is what the house looked like. This was from the aerial view from the drone. And what people thought was like red stuff really isn't. Okay, that's like leaves, those stupid little berries they had, dirt, debris, etc. Nothing that looks bloody. But the second picture I'm going to show you is the one that had been going around that somebody adjusted to make it look like it was red substance up there. So you see that? They took that same shot and they made it look like up there outside Xana's window and on that overhang was red. And that down by the door and everything, it was red. It was completely photoshopped, manipulated. But you guys don't do your due diligence, so you fell for that hook, line, and sinker. And also nobody was pushed off the balcony. I don't know where that story came from or why you guys keep trying to push it. But nobody fell off the balcony. Nobody had injuries from being pushed off or falling off a balcony.
But I really think, just like I said with the middle of the night, there's like a portion where you hear a woman being, strangled. And that's a very personal thing. She was screaming, "Get off of me." This wasn't.
Inquiring minds would love to know how you hear somebody being strangled. Because strangulation is not exactly something that you hear. Somebody's airway is being pushed down on, so they can't vocalize, they can't talk. So you're trying to tell me that somebody being strangled inside of 1122 was heard over on a doorbell, or a light bulb cam at 1112. Really? And screaming, "Get off me, get off me." Nobody's screaming, "Get off me" in any of that audio. But yeah, I'm still intrigued by you thinking you're hearing somebody getting strangled on a camera that's clear around the front of another house.
Other thing, like, how could anyone look at this, say that it was Brian Koberger at the 4 a.m. mark, which is real ironic because nothing sound-wise really goes on much at 4 besides the cars driving around.
Yeah, you know why sound-wise not a lot's going on during that time? Because other than Xana, the rest of them that was it. Ethan was unconscious within seconds. Jugular, subclavian. Okay. Kaylee and Maddie both had injuries to their chest, their airways, their respiratory system. You can't scream. You can't vocalize. You can't make noise. And they were on the bed. They didn't have a chance to even get up or try to run or put up a fight. And the whimpering and the thud you were hearing on the 1112 camera after 4 a.m. was Xana, because she was trying to put up a fight. Okay? But stabbing, it's not like in the movies. Okay? People aren't, unless you're getting like stabbed in an extremity, maybe, you're not screaming. If you're getting stabbed in the chest, the airway, you're not screaming. But also, people are conserving their energy also to try to fight and get away, so you don't scream either. And you'll hear a lot of rape victims say that when they tried to scream, they couldn't. Like when they were trying to get away from the person and they could not scream, they could not make any noise. So you have it in your head what you think you hear in these scream queen movies, and that's not how real life, how it works. And one of the actors, I forget his name, I posted it before, he was in one of the Lord of the Rings movies, and there was a stabbing scene, or no, I think it was Game of Thrones, and there was a stabbing scene, and the director had wanted him to like scream out, and this man had been with the British armed services during World War II. And he had seen men stabbed, and he goes, they don't scream. That's when you get stabbed, it's like the air is getting knocked out of you, and you don't scream. So he had the director change that whole scene so where the character wasn't screaming. So unfortunately, TVs and movies are not very realistic most of the time, and so all these people think that a true crime is going to be like a TV or a movie. So it's not.
So
absolutely.
How is it that you hear gunshots, a car wreck, people literally, I can't confirm if it was Dylan 100%, but when the gun goes off or the car crashes, one of the two, it's between like probably 2:15 and 2:45. Most of this happens. Somebody screams, "Run for your life."
In a world of pure imagination.
Okay, none of that happened. There was not a car wreck outside there. There was a car wreck over in Pullman, near inmate 163214's apartment, but there wasn't a car wreck over near 1122 King Road. There was not gunshots during that time frame. Now, there had been a police report of somebody playing loud music and firing off a gun, and that was over on Main Street several hours earlier. So not during that time frame. And no, you're not hearing any of what you described on that 1112 audio. Like, you're literally just making this stuff up out of your ass. Either that or your confirmation bias is so strong that your brain is making you hear things that aren't really there because you're so convinced that you want to hear these things.
So obviously people were scared. No noise complaints. The cops didn't get called. Who was on duty? What was going on, man? Because if they were right over there at 3 a.m. in the middle of that field, there's no way they didn't hear what was going on if they were there at 2:15 to 2:45.
Because those were normal noises. It was it was like the last home football game, and it was the last party weekend before they were going to be going home for Thanksgiving break the next weekend, and people were out and about. It was normal sounds in a college town. There was nothing alarming that the police would need to think was out of the ordinary. Okay? That's why I say I think your confirmation bias is just working overtime and making you think you're hearing things on that 1112 audio that you're not really hearing.
It really does kind of feel like a purge thing to me. And I know that sounds freaking insane that anyone would do that. But when you look at the pictures, when you look at the evidence, was this like just some weird people that all grouped together and was like, I don't know. But when you got a dude holding a steak knife at a quadruple homicide that's friends with the cops, it really feels like it's a conflict of interest to me.
No, that's just your tinfoil hat. Because when you look at the pictures and you look at the evidence, it's pretty straightforward. And there was no purge. And Hunter Johnson, again, he grabbed the knife because he didn't know if somebody was still in the house that he might have to defend himself against. And just because the cop called him a homeboy doesn't mean that there's any sort of relationship that would create a conflict of interest.
Because I've been through the, is it cartel because of the Jack in the Box? But then again.
Huh? What would Jack in the Box have to do with the cartel? What am I missing here? Please explain. Or, well, maybe I don't want to know.
We've been going through, because this case pisses me off like to no end. It bothers me. Call me a pro burger. I am a pro burger. I'm sorry. But the one thing that's getting to me right now is why, after all this stuff has been released, why aren't the parents doing something?
Because the parents know that it's inmate 163214 that committed the crime. Okay? And a lot of this information they had already known about. Not all of it, but they had talked with the detectives and Idaho State Police, like Gilbertson and others, and they knew about a lot of these things. So this isn't new to them. This isn't anything that they weren't already really aware of. And obviously the prosecution and the defense both had all of these things, and his attorney had all of these things, and she still went and asked for a plea deal. So if anything was exculpatory, she would have been screaming that from the rooftops instead of going and asking for a plea deal. So what do you want the families to do? You want them to just all of a sudden go, oh, well, because you guys don't think it's him, then we don't think it's him. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. And Kaylee's family even came out the other day and said if we didn't think it was him, we'd be screaming that from the rooftops. We wouldn't let an innocent man go to jail, but the families wholeheartedly believe that it's him.
I could speak from that perspective.
I have no sympathy for them anymore. Like, I have none.
Maybe their hands are tied. Have you ever lived in a small town, Joni?
I live in a small town now, yes.
You know the politics that happen in a small town?
I do. So why go and sue too to get money? That's like selling your child.
The hate and vitriol for these parents. Just because you, for whatever misguided reason, think that he's innocent doesn't mean that he is. And it doesn't mean that everybody else, including the parents, the families, need to think that he's innocent. So you hate them because you want them to do something to free the man that murdered their children? Give me a break. And what does it have to do with living in a small town? Like, the victims' families all come from different places, by the way. I mean, come on. Also, the lawsuit against WSU is about accountability. If they even only just get awarded $1, but WSU has to change their policies or admit that they didn't follow their already established policies, then that's a victory. Because it's about how 13 complaints were lodged about him, and it looks like the university just tried to sweep it under the rug instead of properly protecting the female students.
And another thing is, why have they been talking so nasty about Brian, knowing that he's not the one? Like, why are you doing that?
Cue the world's tiniest violin. He admitted his guilt. Here is his written factual basis that he signed, where he confessed to the 4 murders. He is guilty, and he's in prison. So if the families want to talk nasty about him, then have at it, because he murdered their children.
Well, because it's easier to just run with the narrative than use your brain for some people.
But you could just shut your mouth, like, don't say anything at all.
And isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Just like you shouldn't have said anything at all, either. See how easy that was? Ironic, huh?
And they're not going to blame the real killers because we still don't know who it is.
Ah, yes, the real killers. There are no real killers. The real killer is in jail. He's in prison. He's down in Kuna, Idaho, where he belongs.
I just feel like this was
Wild.
I mean, they
No,
knew
but I hear your
maybe
heart.
they looked at Brian and thought that they were going to make money off it because they're definitely
Oh,
about to
they
make
are
a
making money
Lifetime
off of
movie.
it. I
And
promise you they've made money. Yeah.
I really hope if Brian gets out and they make these movies that he sues the shit out of them.
I do.
How does that work exactly? Explain that thought process. How did they look at inmate 163214 and go, oh, yeah, that PhD student over there, we can make money off him? Explain that. How? How in your mind is that a theory? Oh, some random PhD student, we're going to make money off of him. Woo-hoo-hoo. No.
I really do, because
do
I,
too.
as someone who was arrested and the wrong story got ran and that shit burned like wildfire to the point my dad had to call the people like, dude, if you don't stop running this fucking story, I'm suing you for defamation. This isn't what happened. And that's what happened here. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I understand.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Did you actually plead guilty to the crime? Because if you pled guilty, then it's not defamation if somebody is saying that you're the murderer. Okay? So if you were being defamed, I'm assuming that you had proof that you were not guilty of whatever they were accusing you of. But in this circumstance, inmate 163214 confessed. So I've showed that before, that written factual basis. He signed. And then he sat there in court and confessed to all 4 murders. So it's not defamation at this point to say that he's a murderer. It's factual.
I've seen cases for less where they're like slamming the picture down, like, I know what you did to her. What did you do to her? They got
Right.
babied, first of all. And second of all,
Oh,
it's
they
like
did
if
get
the case
babied.
made sense, the pings would line up. We would have the cell phone records. We would be able to use the data. We would be able to confirm. I mean, obviously, dude, my car doesn't have a computer because I drive an older make and model, but these cars nowadays, I mean, when Casey and I went to Florida, it literally shows you everything on your freaking, on your dashboard. So,
well, this wasn't a wrong place, wrong time situation. Okay? This was, he went in the house and he committed the murders. And I also explained earlier that his car did not have the navigation system or an active blue link. So that's all a moot point.
it's preposterous to me that they can just put out whatever they want, put a factually innocent person into prison for the rest of their life for 4 life sentences. I mean,
well, they didn't put out whatever they wanted. They put out actual documented factual information, and he's not factually innocent. I'll say it again. He confessed. He signed the written factual basis when he did the plea deal. He stood up in court, confessed to all 4 murders. He's not factually innocent. And I forgot to add, too, that we do have the cell phone pings, all that. That's all in the documents. Now, it hasn't all been fully released yet or unredacted, but you're acting like they had nothing on him. And that's absolutely false. They had a lot of evidence on him.
imagine having to get a lawyer for a crime that you didn't commit. And then when you get one, it's like, well, we don't care what she has to say. Denied, denied, denied.
If you think that that's the way it went, that they didn't care what Ann Taylor had to say, then you are mistaken. You need to go back and you need to look at the motions she filed, and then you need to look at how both Judge and Judge Hippler ruled, and look at their reasoning, because they actually state law in those decisions. Idaho law, federal law, constitutional law that governs these sort of things. There's precedent. Every time they make a decision on something, it's based on precedent. They don't just decide, oh, I just think I'm going to deny her motion today. No, there's reasoning why the motions were denied. And it wasn't just because they didn't like her or didn't like her client, or there's actual legal basis. So I tell people, read the decisions, read the case law that's cited, because there's always case law cited in those decisions.
I don't know if you know this, But the University of Idaho, the judge put in a protection order that whatever she found out, they could not use it against them.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
And she couldn't
How
talk
is that
about it
even?
either.
How is that even? Like, how
You
is
know
that
what?
fair?
To
I
protect.
was looking with not
Well,
in that
protection, a protection order is to protect. They protected the university.
That's absolutely false. There is no protection order that says that anything that they might have found could not be used against the University of Idaho. That's actually what you would find in a civil case. You're talking liability issue, okay? This was a criminal proceeding, not civil. There was absolutely no protection order like that at all in this case.
But think about it, dude. They did that to tie it in so that way they could human traffic people. There was Craigslist before, like you said, and nobody wants to talk about that either. So it makes me wonder because, I mean, there was, the knives, but there was 600, at least a minimum that I heard of 6 weapon shots fired that night. So was there more people that passed away?
That's another thing I thought about is I think they tore down that house because there was holes in the
Casings,
wall, if you know what I'm
I do
saying.
too. I think that they couldn't find the casings that they lost in the bullets, and that if somebody would have
Yeah.
found them, it would have tied back to their weapon.
In a world of pure imagination.
So now we have 6 gunshots. Where? When? Oh, yeah, there wasn't any gunshots. This just grows and grows and grows in the ludicrousness, if that's a word. I'm amazed. And I'm amazed at the people that all go along with this and agree with this. It's truly amazing. It just flies in the face of all the facts. And human trafficking, you're really trying to, again, say there was human trafficking involved in this?
Was Kara Northington and Ben Mogan left off of that lawsuit?
Yeah, that you bring a really good point.
Because that pisses
I don't
me
know
off.
why that is.
Well,
I think it's because it's going to make them look bad.
So none of you know how a representative of an estate works? That's like the executor of somebody's estate. One person is put in charge of being the representative for a person's estate. And so in this civil suit, it's the 4 people that are the representatives of the estate for the 4 deceased. So Steve is Kaylee's representative, Karen is Maddie's, Jeffrey is Xana's, and Stacy is Ethan's. So none of the rest of the parents are named on here because they're not the representatives. They're not the representative of that person's estate.
As like their past.
Well, they can bring it up in a civil case. They can bring up any character witness. They can bring your whole life, your finances, your friends, your bad behavior, your past criminal behavior, anything against you in a civil case.
Are you not understanding that any of the parents' backgrounds have nothing to do with this and won't be brought up? The civil suit is against WSU, not against any of the parents. There won't be character witnesses like for Kara or any, because that's not, you guys completely do not understand what the civil suit is about. I can tell. They are suing WSU in civil court, saying that WSU violated their own internal guidelines when they did not handle the 13 complaints about inmate 163214 properly, which created an environment that was unsafe for the females at WSU, and that also secondarily led to what eventually happened over in Moscow. There's not going to be character witnesses. There's not going to be any past brought up of any of the parents.
Do you think they maybe didn't join because they want to do a separate investigation of their own somehow or something different? Because usually if you get, so like, I mean, think about it. There's loopholes where, oh, we'll give you this. It's like quid pro quo or whatever the hell it's
Right.
called, where we'll give you this, but in return. So it makes me wonder, did they just say, well, if you do get this lawsuit, you have to drop this forever. Don't ever bring it up again. No private investigating. We don't want to hear shit. Let Koberger rot and you can have your money.
No, it's literally because there are 4 deceased and each one of them has an estate. Well, that's what they call it, like on behalf of the deceased person. And there's somebody that's the representative for each of those estates. So there's one person for each of them. So Steve, Karen, Jeff, and Stacy. That's it. It's that simple. Not everything is a conspiracy. Not everything has to be nefarious. Some things are just basic common sense.
Either of you remember then back in the very beginning, especially you, Jess, with your memory, way back in the beginning, the 911 call. Did you ever hear the 911 call coming in at 8 a.m.?
I remember that. I do remember that being said, and it always struck me as weird because it seems like maybe, I mean, the kids acted like they already knew. So that's what always struck me weird about that. But I don't know, because I know for a fact that was definitely not Dylan. And the way that she did the 911 call was so weird. She literally, I mean, when someone's acting, and it was like, we have a roommate, but it was so fake. And then when everyone gets there, it's like nobody gave a shit. And that's what makes me mad, man, because I know as an adult, I get so rattled, which I do have PTSD, but I get so rattled. So I can't imagine walking into a scene like that and just acting like, I mean, I get people were shocked, but nobody was freaking out. If I walked up to a scene like that next to my house or my college and 4 people were brutally unalived, I really would have been like that guy who was like, hide your kids, hide your wives.
There was no 8 a.m. 911 call. I swear, you guys have never met a rumor you didn't like. Like, you love every single unfounded rumor out there and then repeat it like it's fact. No 8 a.m. call. Also, you don't know how you would act until you're in that exact same situation. So please, stop saying that if it was you, you would have been doing this, and that Dylan was faking, and that it wasn't her on the call, or that. Just shut up, okay? If you can't think critically and look at this case using your brain cells, then maybe don't say anything at all.
I'd be crying for my mom. I mean, nobody was asking for their mom.
It just seems so like distorted, like nobody cared that was at the scene. I mean, down to the 911 call, everything felt so staged. Dylan did.
Alex Jones says hi. He's just trying to remind you of what can happen when you make false accusations about a crime being staged.
It does.
No, I feel
It does.
I get Dylan. I'm so confused right now, just like she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, not funny at all. I mean, we know you're confused all the time, Phoenix. That's obvious. But making a joke like that at Dylan's expense, not funny.
We're talking about follow the money. What if somebody bought into the cartel, whether it be Steve Green, whether it be the Gonzalez, the families, or whoever bought into the cartel?
Yeah, I think you mean Scott Green, and no, he didn't buy into the cartel. No, Steve Gonzalez didn't buy into the cartel. Cartel was not involved at all. Law enforcement ruled out drugs way back near the start.
Okay, the cartel was supposed to go get the frats, the people that did this. They were supposed to involve them along with LE, along with the CIA, along with the FBI, along with everybody else.
In a world of pure imagination.
Oh, okay, so now it's not just the cartel. It's the frats and the police and the CIA. Okay. And what's next? The King of England and the French president. And who else could we drag into this? NFL players, the Pope. some soccer players, maybe. I don't know. Let's just pick random people off the street and say they were involved.
To pull everything together, WSU didn't want anything to do with it. WSU gave up Coburger.
Well, that's a good
You know
theory.
what?
No, WSU didn't give him up. And listen to Phoenix sitting there agreeing, oh, that's a good theory. This is like Dumb and Dumber and Dumbest.
It really blows my mind because of the fact that Chief Fry left and then he went to Pullman after this.
Exactly.
No, he didn't go to Pullman. He ran for Latah County Sheriff. Didn't win that. The incumbent won. So then he came out of retirement to become the West Richland, Washington police chief.
Fry sat down and did an interview, and he said he never went to the crime scene because he did not want to contaminate it. And when he said that, I thought to myself, wait a minute, there's a divide here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, there's not a divide. And he did go there. He went to the crime scene. He just never entered it. He didn't go in the house. He was there. He's pictured there several times, actually. And he did go into the house later. But that day, when he arrived from out of town, he did not go in because there was enough people already in there, the ones that had secured the house, and then he was waiting for his detectives to show up to do their walkthrough, so he didn't go in. And there's no divide going on. He was just being prudent.
Funny how
Moly, it
psychology
begins to
works,
make
Phoenix.
sense.
It's funny how psychology works, man, when you're guilty or you know too much, or because I just think it's funny. There was a lot of statements that just had very particular wording to it. Like I said with Steve G and saying it's a sacrifice. And then he said something about don't make me be the alpha. Midwest Chicken Shore on TikTok has literally speculated that, was that him hint dropping because when I watched The One Night in Idaho and Stacy Chapin said 2 a.m. was a dark hour, I went straight to the tapes and started listening to 2 a.m. because if Brian Koberger was there at 4, then what do you mean? But I mean, they were walking over. You know what?
Okay, Stacy's comment is an old saying. 2 a.m. is a dark hour. That's an old saying that is about being woken up with intrusive thoughts, whether that's grief or from depression or different things. It's a phrase that I used to hear my grandparents say and other relatives. And there's actually a psychological basis behind it. They found that 2 a.m. is actually around the time that people will wake up in the middle of the night when their intrusive thoughts get to them. Now, as far as Steve, I can't find any interviews where he said anything about a sacrifice. But I did find the one where he talks about don't make me be the alpha, and it was not a clue going to anybody. It was at the time, it was early in the investigation. This was like within days right after the murders. He's basically saying don't make me step up and have to be the one to do this investigation. Okay? And then he talked about how he has the right to talk about these things because he paid that price because he sent his daughter to college and she came back in an urn. As a parent, you've paid that price, okay? Nothing to do with the sacrifice, no coded language. Being the alpha has nothing to do with sending a message, hint to anyone. People, like I say, are just getting in the weeds. But here you can listen to that interview, and it's hard because they're in their first stages of grief.
Let's stop playing games, guys. I need somebody to step up and be an alpha. Be somebody to be a leader. Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it. He doesn't have to go up the steps. Their points of damage don't match. I'm just going to say it. It wasn't leaked to me. I earned that. I paid for that funeral. I paid for that. It's my right. You ain't taking that from me.
Calm down.
If you don't want to say nothing, that's your bet. But don't say I'm leaking anything. I paid that bill. Sent my daughter to college to get an education. She came back in the box, and I can speak on that.
But I wanted to bring up this picture, Jess, since you talk about this a lot. Could somebody have been pushed over this balcony?
I swear that's what I think, Phoenix, because if you go back to one of the other body cams, they come up and the couch was in front of the sliding glass doors, kind of. And I just posted this on my TikTok today. If you guys go look, it's like my probably last video I posted, The Real Just Reigns, and it's literally they're doing a noise complaint for somewhere else, and then they go over there, but when they walk up, they reported it 1122 Queen Road. So that was the first, I was like, that's kind of just weird, another what are the odds? But it was strange to me because he kept pointing out that there was no stairs to the balcony before they even got up on the house when they're walking down the street. And I was just like, that's so weird.
Again, with this balcony obsession, nobody was pushed off the balcony. None of their injuries are consistent with anybody being pushed off of anything. And as far as the officer pointing out about the stairs, that observation wasn't made when he was walking up before he got to the house. It was made when he was back there on the patio looking around, and I'm sure it was because he was probably wondering if it was code. Because that many bedrooms in the house, that many people live in there, and you don't really have, access down from that upper floor deck. But I'll play the body cam. You can decide for yourself if it's weird.
Huh, no stairs to the back deck. Interesting.
And then because I thought about where Steve was like, oh, they didn't have to go down the stairs. And then there was a ladder outside. So I've speculated that a lot because you could easily tie someone to that fucking balcony railing. Or if Ethan ran out, I mean, we've heard the reports that there was a naked man running down the streets. Was that them? Because there was the other clip where you see two guys in black chasing someone or running down by the apartments or whatever. And like I said, there was weapon shots fired. Was Ethan running and that's how his legs got messed up? They shot him in the legs to try to keep him from running to contain him. Did they tie them up and then tie them to this balcony railing? Because why does Xana and Ethan have more defense wounds to the point that Xana almost didn't have hands? And I speculated too, like, well, was it a cartel hit and she was stealing and they did Kaylee's mouth for talking? Because I wondered that too. Did they shoot Ethan in his legs because he was running drugs and Kaylee got her mouth busted in for what she told Adam?
In a world of pure imagination.
So many things to unpack there. First of all, again, Ethan wasn't shot. Okay? Ethan didn't jump off a balcony. Ethan wasn't running naked. I already showed how that was made up by the Daily Mirror, that there was no naked man running around that morning. Nobody was tied up. Nobody had ligature marks, if you look at the medical examiner's report. So there was nobody that was tied up. This fascination with the balcony is getting really weird between you and Phoenix. I'm not sure what's going on there. And there were no gunshots heard at all on that audio. None. And also, where? Where were two people in black seen chasing anyone? Where? Please, give me a timestamp, because I'm not seeing anyone being chased on the 1112 camera. And if somebody were being chased, which I doubt there is anyone, how do you know that they were coming from 1122? Okay, so try to keep your little speculations rooted in fact.
Then you have the staining of whatever here on the gravel. That's why I said, could somebody have pushed a body over and, who had the gash wounds in their head?
Again, with the fucking balcony. I just can't at this point. I'm like, I just can't with the stupidity. Nobody was pushed off the balcony, okay? And the gash wounds in the head were caused by the knife. Like, that, I just... Thank goodness I'm almost done going through these clips, because this is just getting to the point where I'm amazed that people are actually this devoid of common sense.
Someone, were they trying to stop what happened, or they saw what happened to Kaylee and Maddie and was like, they got caught in the act and they had to take care of Xana and Ethan and they fought the hardest? I mean, is that possible?
Well, I want to make the point that if Dylan was in the house and all that was going on, if Ethan saw it and he was so willing to run away and either jump off a roof or a balcony or whatever, it just doesn't make sense. She didn't run, but locked herself in a room. None of it makes sense at all.
I'm at a loss for words.
There's blood all over the side of the house. I mean, did someone fall? Did someone hit their head? Were they shot there? Who knows?
No, nobody fell. Nobody hit their head. Nobody was shot there. Ethan had his jugular and his subclavian sliced. He bled out. Okay? His blood, most of the blood in his body, drained out. He bled out. So much that it leaked outside the house.
We just don't have any great ideas. We don't have any great conclusions, I should say.
Oh my gosh, that's like the first time I've heard you say anything that has any sort of ring of common sense to it. You're right, you don't have any great conclusions. Because all of your conclusions have been cuckoo, cuckoo. And the case is already solved. Okay? It's solved.
Crazy, Phoenix, that happens every day, man, and people don't understand, and they're like, well, why? Somebody asked me, why would you advocate for a murderer? It's like, okay, well, if there was evidence that he was guilty, then I would understand, but they can't produce anything. I've never seen a crime scene without a hair. I've never seen someone cut someone that many times and not have one single blood drop.
Look up Christopher Porco, look up Robert Tellis, look up the Marsh case in California. Daniel Marsh. They didn't leave traces of themselves at the crime scene. And those aren't the only 3 cases like that. And actually, in this case, inmate 163214 did leave a trace. He left his skin cells on the sheath. So, he also was on camera circling the neighborhood too. So, there's that also. So, that's actually more than in some of those cases. And actually, Porco is kind of similar because what caught Christopher Porco was like a toll pass. He thought he had worked it out perfectly where he could drive from school, sneak in and out of his parents' house, leave without anybody seeing him, and he got caught because of a toll pass. Because he left like no DNA, no evidence in the house. So, this has happened before, it'll unfortunately happen again.
That's what scares me, dude. One knife sheath can change your life forever.
Yeah, I wonder about that because they said it was on the metal snap and it degrades over time on metal. So I don't know about that.
Well, actually, if you see the purple rectangle, they swabbed all that area inside the purple rectangle. So it wasn't just the snap. It was actually on the leather too. And the skin cells chafe off, around that ridge that's around the snap. So it was on the leather too. And it was a robust amount. Othram said it was a larger amount than they're used to.
I mean, just like how Brent Lee Kopeka was pulled into all of this. And I haven't done a lot of research into Nicholas Mowich yet. They were somehow involved in something to do with this. I don't know, but
nope, neither one of them was involved. They got dragged in, unfortunately, by content creators that were trying to make up scenarios rather than look at the actual person that committed the crimes, inmate 163214. And you really should not, there's no reason for you to look in further to Mowich. All you're doing is causing harm. Let him rest in peace. And we don't even know for sure if that was Mowich that was mentioned in that report because it's all redacted. Okay, it was Jay Embry that decided that it must be Nicholas Mowich. And then he also made up a whole story about Mowich's son living at the Queen Road Apartments, which is absolutely false. He did not have any children that lived in Moscow. So you got to stop listening to the content creators that peddle BS. Okay? And you got to stop just believing when they drag in every single name they can. Stop believing that. Okay? Neither Kopaka nor Mowich were involved, and their name shouldn't have been dragged in, and they're not with us anymore to even defend themselves. So just leave them alone.
Once again, what are the odds that he's, I believe, the one who was supposed to be validating that he was with BK when he bought the K-bar, but supposedly the K-bar came from his professor.
In a world of pure imagination.
No, neither Mowich or Kopaka was supposed to be validating that they were with him when he bought the K-bar. Inmate 163214 purchased the K-bar from Amazon online. The K-bar and the sheath. They have the records. And I don't know where the hell you're getting anything about the knife coming from a professor. Like, that's absolutely a new one I haven't heard yet. So kudos, you came up with some brand new conspiracy theory.
And
yeah.
then there's a literal video of him calling the police. And I know, as someone who has complex post-traumatic stress disorder, he was not on drugs. He was in full fight or flight mode. He said, there's been 2 men, they're threatening to unalive me. They didn't believe him because it's so easy to mistake someone with PTSD for a drug user, because our fight or flight goes out the fucking window, like full blown. Well, what are the odds? A few months later, Brentley Kopeka dies in a SWAT standoff where they say he's the one that cornered 2 men and barricaded him in a room, and then he got killed. Like, what are the odds? And it feels like, well, did you just need a statement for him to validate that, and now he's gone?
Again, Kopaka. It's also, by the way, Kopaka, not Kopeka or Kopencil or whatever you were calling him. But Brent did not have any sort of statement to validate anything with inmate 163214. Didn't know him. Wasn't involved. As far as police not believing him, he was having mental breaks, okay? Be it the PTSD or the traumatic brain injury. And I'm not making light of this, okay? It's horrible how our veterans come back. But in the body cam video, you can hear him saying that they were putting something down below his door and poured like a chemical on it, and it was frozen solid and all these things. He was delusional, to put it nicely. And just a couple weeks before that body cam footage, he was talking to a manhole. He was in downtown Pullman. They had to call 911 because he was out in the street talking to a manhole. Like, he thought that one of his brothers was down in the manhole. So no, nobody was really after him. The cops didn't look into that claim because there was no 2 people going after him. But unfortunately, like, Jay Embry took the whole thing and spun some whole yarn about a girlfriend over in Troy, Idaho, and things that weren't even true. Ugh.
Because I just found out that Molly's fucking husband was shot and killed 9 times. So who was Molly's husband?
Yeah,
Was
at
he
the
pulled
trailer
in through
park.
this somehow?
Molly's husband was shot clear back in 2013. Not even related. She wasn't pulled in through anything from that. She wasn't pulled in at all. All she was doing was delivering food.
Is there a serial killer or someone? Because the way Brent was saying it, he said it was somebody related to his ex-girlfriend or through her, but wouldn't give a name. And he said, like, he's been intimidating me with a gun, all of this stuff. Is there just some big serial killer bully running around? Because that man's grown. So if he was that terrified of someone, but what are the odds, Phoenix? What do you think the odds are that he's telling the police that he was being threatened by 2 men with a gun and then dies by opposite?
Well, there was a protection order or something in regards to this whole relationship that he allegedly had with this girl. She was, I guess, causing some trouble. And it was actually a call that night on the Big Country Blotter. And I researched that whole thing and it led back to that. So I was like, wow, there was a lot going on in Moscow that night.
That's what.
No, there's not some big serial killer bully running around. And this was the civil call for, like, the protection order, and it was a civil standby with an old roommate. Had nothing to do with Kopaka. Nothing to do with him or his girlfriend. There was no protection orders out on Kopaka at all. So I'm not sure what you researched, but you didn't research very well, Phoenix.
Like, why are we the ones doing this? First of all, I mean, honestly, why? I feel like if half of as much work as you and the other creators that have done on this case, Phoenix, that it would have already been solved.
Hey, newsflash, Inspector Gadget and Inspector Cloizeau. The case is already solved and closed. And the perp's in jail.
And then I found out that there's an Amtrak in Moscow, so
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
started wondering, like, was it something to do with the film ring because that guy was there from Canada, or You don't know, man. Was this shit put on the black market? Is that why everything was Snapchatted? Or does someone have these videos saved in their phone? And it just freaks you out. Because I honestly, sometimes when I make these videos, I'm like, man, I wonder if the person who really did this is watching. It's freaky, man. It really freaks me out. I don't know if any other creators get like that,
It's
man.
weird.
There's only one Amtrak station in Idaho, and it's in Sandpoint. Definitely not in Moscow. And yeah, you're tinfoil hatty, and it feels like you're starting to come off your rails a little bit, because it sounds like you're even freaking yourself out with your crazy theories. So maybe like take a day to decompress, self-reflect, do some introspection.
That seems so staged. It almost seems like, I don't know, man. It seems like everything was staged. Why were they standing over there? Right. If you were standing right there, how did you not hear everything that I heard? You would have heard those weapons fired. You would have heard those screams. I mean, let alone you could hear someone being literally strangled in the dark, because when she gasped for air, it was so loud. There's no way nobody heard that. I mean,
In a world of pure imagination.
Okay, you're seriously just repeating more of the same lunacy that you've already repeated several times. And again, there was no gunshots. Nobody was shot.
You know what's really strange to me about that, Jess? Is those cops had to have heard what we heard. And why did they not go address that?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, why were they standing in the field across from the thing? Like, what, I don't know. It feels like, I don't know, dude, to catch a predator, but backwards, like to catch a
Oh,
victim
yeah.
somehow or
Catch
something. It's
yeah,
really
killer.
weird.
Catch a victim.
I can't explain it. It's just so weird. The whole everything.
Need I say more?
So I honestly don't know. I can say that I believe in God, and I prayed beforehand that if the victims had anything that they wanted to be known, that if their spirits would lead me, if there was something they wanted heard, and I'll never get those noises out of my head. So to whoever did that, I want to give a big F you to you.
Well, here he is. You can give a big F you to this still shot of him.
We have a quadruple homicide on campus. Can you come in and start?
Whoa. I didn't make this shit up. It's on the internet. It's on the body cams. I mean, did this happen on campus? Is this what Kaylee and Maddie were running to go see Xana and Ethan?
Homicide on campus.
Could that be possible? I mean, there's so many twists and turns.
You do realize it was just an honest slip of the tongue, because where I have my facepalm emoji is campus. Okay? The King Roadhouse is right near campus. So when he gets over to that area, a lot of them probably just consider that campus, even though that part is off campus and private, housing and everything. But it's literally right by campus. So again, you guys get out in the weeds and you make something big about nothing. Like if you've ever heard the phrase mountain out of a molehill, that's exactly what you're doing. You're making a mountain out of a molehill.
I still want to know about why was everyone looking at their phones at the grub truck saying, Xana, no.
So I have that part of the grub truck to play. And if you look, not everybody's on their phone. Some people are on their phone. Some people aren't on their phone. Some people are eating their food. Some people are waiting for their food. It's like a typical night at a food truck. And not everybody is all watching their phone at once. And also nobody is saying Xana. You hear one girl that says Adriana. She's like calling over her friend Adriana, and you see the girl come walking over to the group. So it's someone named Adriana that they were yelling for. And then there was like another girl's name that one of them said as well. And then you had like that guy and that girl that were like looking at each other like, no, it was just people goofing off after the bars closed, waiting for their food. And if you had gotten that grub truck footage just on its own and didn't know who Xana was, you wouldn't even be hearing the name Xana in there at all. What it is it's that confirmation bias. You want to hear something associated with the murderers on that glove truck footage, so your brain is making you think you're hearing something. So if you try to erase that all out of your mind and just listen to it objectively, you don't hear her name in there at all.
How far are we on that? You said it was a pester, right? Okay. How far is that trouble?
Like a quarter left.
Yeah, I know. Fucking working, man. I got one cheese sauce left in the normal. What's that partial in that? What's the partial in there? Okay.
In the Fight Club. I've heard so much about this supposed Fight Club. I would love to know. And you know what, Phoenix? Kids talk. Why has no college kids ever come out on social media, or nobody's ever said a word?
Okay, there was no Fight Club. That was completely made up, and somebody tried to put out like fake text messages, and you could tell they were totally written by AI, by ChatGPT. As far as kids talking, yes, they do talk. And they have talked about what they know. And the thing is, none of them knew anything, because it was one perpetrator that went in the house and murdered them. It was a stranger. So what are you expecting? What are they going to say when they don't know anything more than anybody else knew?
Over it, dude. Maddie's fingernails. I'll never get over that. That was when I was like,
Yeah.
yep, that's weird. Why would you have DNA under somebody's fingernails? And that's a telltale sign of fighting back in self-defense. So it makes no sense. I would love to
Yeah.
know if they even still have that evidence in custody, Phoenix. I really would. Or did it disappear too?
Well, they're supposed to preserve it.
Yes, they did preserve it. And what you're not understanding is we have DNA underneath our fingernails naturally, just from daily activities. Our own skin cells are going to be under there. Anybody that we've been in close proximity with, like we're living in the same house with, etc. And Maddie was determined not to have fought back. She had no active defensive wounds. And I did a video on this. The perpetrator was wearing long sleeves and gloves, so there wasn't any skin to try to scratch anyway. But Maddie's blood alcohol level, everything, she was not able to fight back. And also, the DNA under her nails was hers and Kaylee's, and then one unidentified. It wasn't 3 unidentified. It was 1. And the likelihood ratios show that the highest amount was Ethan's. So somebody she was living in the house with, which makes sense. So you can go watch my full video on it on my YouTube channel.
But, Gunderson was calling Jay Waters, right? He is like a traffic and patrol cop, and obviously they needed some extra hands. I mean, he's had 14,000 traffic stops and 5,000 citations, and they're calling him to come and help with the quadruple murder. And Gunderson says on campus. Did this happen on campus, or was that just a slip? I mean,
well, it would make sense. There's no evidence
so many
of any
twists and
crime
turns
there.
in this case.
The crime scene was so clean that would make
That's why they had there.
sense, transferring a body and then getting rid of the evidence of the trail of the whatever it was. And I don't know. I really do wonder.
What body was being transferred? What evidence? What trail? Also, when they call people in, like the traffic cop, it's not necessarily to be doing any forensic parts or the parts that the lead detectives would be assigning out for technical things, like how Lawrence Mowry was doing the phones, working on cast with the FBI agent, things like that. They come in basically just to make sure the scene is staying secure, somebody to watch the doors. to file basic paperwork. Maybe if they need to send somebody out to track somebody down to do an interview, okay? And also, just because he's doing traffic doesn't mean that he hasn't been trained also in investigation, because to be a police officer there, you have to go through the post training academy there in near Boise, Lake Meridian. And so all of the officers have had training in various areas that are needed for police work. So to act like they just called somebody in off the street that has no experience, no training at all is a little ridiculous. But that's the thing. You guys are just grasping at straws, so you're trying to turn anything innocent into something that's some sort of conspiracy or weird thing. It's just strange to me.
Because think about it, if it did, is that why they moved it Phoenix, because of the money? Because they didn't want to get sued if it was on campus? Because what about Hudson Lindau? What about, I mean, that's what I want to know. I want to look into every other college kid or between Pullman and there that's ever gotten her. I would love to know.
Seriously, just stop. Nothing was moved, okay? The murders didn't happen on campus. They happened off. Has nothing to do with the WSU lawsuit. Again, okay? I think you're confusing WSU with the University of Idaho. Two different campuses, okay? Two different schools, two different states. And like Hudson Lindau, not connected. Had nothing to do with the murders of Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan at all. Digging into other deaths at college campuses, they're college campuses. They're full of people. So naturally, there's always going to be deaths at college campuses, okay? You got car accidents, you've got illnesses, you've got suicides, you've got overdoses, just people die. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean here, and not every death is related, okay? And not every murder is related. Not every accident is related. If you look at any college campus, you're going to see students that have passed away throughout the course of the school year. And University of Idaho actually has a very small number of students that have passed away every year. The quadruple murder was an anomaly. So, I mean, some of the bigger campuses like Michigan State, they have like 20 to 30 students a year pass away. And that doesn't mean that it's anything nefarious or that anything's connected. But hey, if you want to dig into these kids' deaths, have at it. But I think it's just ridiculous, and it's actually gross, because trying to drag in something unrelated to try to make some point just because you think inmate 163214 is innocent, it really is kind of gross how people are trying to claim that Hudson's death wasn't accidental, that it was hazing, or that it was murder, or that it was, stop and think about how his parents feel hearing all this crap. Somehow, I can't imagine that if that was your child, you would be happy about the people doing what you're doing.
Because how many more kids is it going to be? The first time I heard about Hudson, I really wondered, like, did somebody fucking waterboard him? He was a swimmer, dude. It's like the irony, and he dies in 6 inches of water. There's more victims. That's what really gets me. There's way more victims than just 4 in this case.
No, Hudson was not waterboarded, and it wasn't 6 inches of water. Paradise Creek was running at almost 3 feet. Can't talk right now. 3 feet of water. But also, when you fall and you hit your head and you're rendered unconscious, you can drown even in 6 inches of water, okay? And being a swimmer isn't going to help you when you're unconscious. It was a tragic accident. And yeah, you're right. There's more than 4 victims. There's 6, because Dylan and Bethany are victims, okay? He came into their house without permission and murdered their roommates. They are victims also.
No, I live by myself.
Gotcha.
I live by myself. I don't have a roommate, but everybody was leaving in his house. Didn't he say that?
Yep, that's pretty weird.
Well, actually, that's not weird because he was talking about his fraternity brothers. So even though he lived out of the fraternity house and in an apartment, he was still a member of Delta Tau Delta fraternity. And he talks about in his police interview how he would go over to the fraternity house like for chapter on Monday nights and chapter dinner and hang out there sometimes. And he also had talked in one of his interviews about how they did like the head count after everybody was finding out about the murders to make sure that everybody was safe and okay. And so his fraternity brothers had started deciding to head back home instead of doing classes. So that's what he was talking about. So yes, he lived alone, but his fraternity brothers that lived in the fraternity house were already leaving town.
Jack S., I just want to say a few things here in regards to this. This is how any of this started for me. I listened to that clip and I realized that he definitely lied. They did not leave the grub truck at 2 or 2:30. Olivia had said it was closer to 12:56 or so, or around the 1 a.m. mark that they had left, which would make sense because I believe the girls were, they walked in maybe around 1:20, 1:30-ish. He left at 1:43, first of all, alone. So that there's no alibi there, right? Second.
Okay, so the girls got home at 1:56. That's when Eric Gower dropped them off. And Jack left the grub truck as they were getting in the car with Gower, so you figure probably about 5 minutes before that, so maybe around 1:50. So, but he probably wasn't watching his watch or staring at his, well, you can tell he wasn't looking at a phone while he was there at the grub truck. So he was estimating time. Okay, and what's happening is a lot of you guys are taking everything they said so literal. And you're not understanding that people don't know the exact times down to a minute. Not unless they were actually just standing there staring at a clock. So when somebody says, "What time did you leave last night?" it's going to be like, I don't know. It was after we left such and such, but before that. I mean, unless you know exactly what time it is, you're going to estimate. You're going to guesstimate. So he estimated a certain time, and you even were sitting there saying the wrong times for when the girls got home. So you can see how easy that is to do. I mean, unless I was like watching a TV show or something or looking at my phone, I wouldn't know what time I was leaving somewhere. I just got home last night from my friend's birthday party. I couldn't tell you what time I got home. I didn't look. I was on my phone, but I didn't look at the time. So if somebody had said, "Hey, what time did you get home?" I'd be like, I don't know, like after 11, but before midnight. So you gotta stop trying to make everything be so like that these kids have to remember everything right to the minute and second. But let's continue.
Of all, I did a little research earlier and I don't know if it's related, but we spoke last week about that weird Reddit account, the John Rogers 1122, right? Well, his name has that name in it, but did you know that John Rogers is also a school out there? So is he related to them, like Jack, John, Show, Rogers, Showalter? But what are the odds too that I mean, it was said John Rogers 1122 was the Reddit account, and it was speaking to an account that said BK something, talking about, you can dry the paint in 5 hours, or if you use this primer, it'll help. And it was just so weird.
Okay, so you're talking about this account on Reddit. This is not Jack. This is somebody that's using Jack's name, John Rogers 1122, to try to accuse him and blame him. If you read these posts, you will see that they are actually claiming that he's the murderer. So if you look at this one, they think Brian was framed. They think that their hooded friend is who did it. And then here's another post. Why are they framing him? Why is your country so damn corrupt? That gives me a clue as to who this is. And I'm not going to say the name, but I know now. I know who this is that's posting using Jack Showalter's name.
Boise is enough time. If that car wrecked in the middle of the night and they called around noon, it would probably be around the same time that they arrived to wherever he was, possibly. I mean, the car was found in Eugene, Oregon, about 7 hours away. If they left at 5 in the morning and drove, they would get there at what, around 11-ish, unless they stopped for a bathroom break or whatever is the math I was mathing. So I don't know.
Okay, so the Elantra that was found in Eugene, that crash occurred on December 17th. So over a month after the murders. So no, nobody drove that car from 1122 down to Eugene in the morning after the murders. That car wasn't even associated. Okay. And I also FOIA'd the documents, so I have them. And I've posted them before in videos. And the owner of the car was not related in any way, shape, or form to 1122 King Road.
I personally, of all people, know that it can be very scary talking about stuff like this because, if you bury something good enough, you're not going to want people like me, you, Birdie, Sammy, digging into stuff. So,
yeah, I don't think anybody's worried about you desperate conspirator wives. Like the Desperate Housewives, but you're desperate conspirator wives. Nobody's scared about you digging into anything because there's nothing to find. The case is solved. It's closed. He's in jail. Yes, I know it was a long video. Thanks for sticking with me and watching it. But I thought it was important to get this second part put out and not break it down into more segments. And if you watched Stephanie's video the other day where she breaks down the different types of conspiracy creators, just in this one video alone, they meet all 5 of the categories. So that's really, really crazy. But I just wanted to shed some light on how just one live from one creator can either create new conspiracies or further old conspiracies, but keep them out there so that they're still going and the harm that it can cause.